Complete history of the 1979 Iranian Revolution, from empire to Islamic Republic. Empires rarely fall when they appear weakest. More often, they collapse at the height of their spectacle, when confidence masks fragility and ceremony disguises fear. In the 1970s, Iran stood before the world as a pillar of stability in a volatile Middle East. Oil revenues surged after the 1973 energy crisis. Tehran's skyline pierced the horizon with steel and glass, and Western leaders toasted the Shah as a guardian against Soviet expansion. The monarchy projected inevitability. Military parades rolled through boulevards, the secret police monitored dissent with clinical efficiency, and state television narrated a story of progress without interruption. Yet, beneath the polished narrative, deeper forces were at work, forces rooted not merely in politics, but in memory, identity, faith, and humiliation. The 1979 Iranian Revolution was not a sudden outburst of anger. It was the culmination of decades of tension between modernization imposed from above and legitimacy demanded from below. To understand why a monarch who commanded one of the strongest militaries in the region would abandon his throne in January 1979, we must examine not only the final protests, but the psychological architecture of power that preceded them. When Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi ascended the throne in 1941, he did so under extraordinary circumstances. His father, Reza Shah, had been compelled to abdicate during World War II after British and Soviet forces occupied Iran, fearing Axis influence. From the beginning, the young Shah ruled in the shadow of foreign intervention and domestic insecurity. That insecurity intensified in the early 1950s when Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, challenging British economic dominance and asserting Iranian sovereignty. The crisis culminated in August 1953 when a covert operation orchestrated by the CIA and MI6 helped remove Mossadegh and restore the Shah's authority. Though the monarchy survived, the event left a scar in Iran's political consciousness. For many Iranians, it confirmed that foreign powers could shape their destiny. For the Shah, it reinforced the belief that survival depended on control and Western alliance. From that moment forward, the regime's modernization would be inseparable from its dependence. In 1963, the Shah launched the White Revolution, a sweeping program of reforms designed to transform Iran into a modern industrial state. Land redistribution aimed to dismantle feudal structures. Women gained the right to vote. Literacy corps were dispatched to rural villages. Infrastructure projects accelerated urban growth. On paper, the reforms were ambitious and progressive. In practice, they disrupted established social networks without creating stable alternatives. Many peasants received plots too small to sustain livelihoods and migrated to cities already straining under rapid expansion. Traditional clerical authorities saw their influence eroded by state intrusion into education and law. Economic growth concentrated wealth in urban centers and among elites tied to the monarchy, while inflation and corruption undermined public trust. Iran viewed modernization as a linear ascent toward prosperity. Large segments of society experienced it as dislocation, inequality, and cultural erosion. Nowhere was the regime's confidence more visible than in October 1971, when the Shah organized the 2500th anniversary celebration of the Persian monarchy at Persepolis. World dignitaries attended an extravagant spectacle set against the ruins of the ancient Achaemenid capital. The message was unmistakable. The Pahlavi dynasty stood as heir to Cyrus the Great, guardian of a civilization older than Rome. Yet the grandeur produced unintended symbolism. As imported cuisine was served in desert tents of silk, many Iranians struggled with rising prices and political repression. The regime's secret police, Savak, expanded surveillance and detained critics, including intellectuals, nationalists, and religious leaders. By 1975, the Shah dissolved political pluralism altogether, declaring a single-party system under the Rostahi's party. Participation became compulsory, dissent equated with treason. The monarchy, once anxious about its survival, now projected an image of total control. Paradoxically, that very projection narrowed its margin for error. Among those who challenged the Shah's legitimacy was Ayatollah Khomeini, a cleric who had denounced the White Revolution in 1963 and was subsequently exiled. From Najaf in Iraq and later from France, Khomeini articulated a doctrine that fused political authority with religious guardianship, arguing that in the absence of the hidden imam, a qualified Islamic jurist should guide the state. His speeches circulated on cassette tapes, copied and redistributed through mosque networks, bazaars, and student groups. In an era before digital communication, this analog dissemination proved remarkably resilient. Khomeini's rhetoric framed opposition not simply as political disagreement, but as moral obligation. The Shah was portrayed as a ruler estranged from Islamic values and subordinated to foreign interests. By recasting resistance as a sacred duty, the opposition transformed fragmented grievances into a shared narrative of redemption. The turning point arrived in January 1978, when a government-sponsored newspaper published an article attacking Khomeini. Protests erupted in the holy city of Qom. Security forces responded with lethal force. In accordance with Shia mourning traditions, memorial ceremonies were held 40 days later, generating new demonstrations, which in turn produced additional casualties. This cycle of mourning and protest created a rhythm of mobilization embedded in religious culture itself. By the summer of 1978, strikes spread across sectors critical to the economy, including the oil industry. The paralysis signaled that dissent had moved beyond students and clerics into the industrial workforce. On September 8, 1978, known as Black Friday, troops fired on demonstrators in Tehran's Jaleh Square. Conflicting reports of casualties circulated widely, amplifying outrage and eroding the regime's credibility. When a government loses control over information, it forfeits the ability to define reality. Rumor becomes more persuasive than official statement. Throughout late 1978, the Shah oscillated between concession and repression. He dismissed prime ministers, promised constitutional reforms, and spoke of liberalization even as martial law expanded. Each gesture appeared reactive rather than decisive. Elite confidence faltered. Military commanders questioned loyalty within their ranks. Political allies hedged their bets. By December, millions marched in coordinated demonstrations during the holy month of Muharram, invoking historical themes of martyrdom and injustice. The symbolism was potent. The struggle against the Shah was cast as a reenactment of Imam Hussein's stand at Karbala. The revolution had acquired a sacred vocabulary. On January 16, 1979, the Shah departed Iran, officially for medical treatment. Crowds celebrated in the streets. On February 1st, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Tehran, greeted by an enormous throng that signaled the irreversible shift of authority. Within days, military neutrality accelerated the collapse of the monarchy. On April 1st, 1979, a national referendum declared the establishment of the Islamic Republic. A new constitution later that year institutionalized the doctrine of Vilayat-e-Faqih, granting the supreme leader ultimate authority over the state's political and military apparatus. The revolution replaced hereditary monarchy with a theocratic republic, redefining sovereignty as divine guardianship rather than dynastic continuity. Yet the consolidation of power was neither immediate nor contested. Secular revolutionaries, leftist organizations, and liberal reformers who had opposed the Shah found themselves marginalized as clerical authorities solidified. The U.S. Embassy hostage crisis in November 1979 further entrenched anti-American sentiment and severed diplomatic relations, embedding the revolution within a broader geopolitical confrontation. The new regime faced internal purges, external threats, and soon the devastating Iran-Iraq War beginning in 1980. The revolution promised independence and moral renewal. It delivered sovereignty intertwined with prolonged struggle. What makes the Iranian Revolution historically significant is not merely the overthrow of a monarch, but the manner in which cultural memory, religious symbolism, economic disparity, and political repression converged into a unified movement. The Shah miscalculated the depth of attachment to spiritual authority and the potency of collective grievance. He measured progress in steel production and GDP growth. His critics measured legitimacy in justice and authenticity. The revolution illustrates a broader historical principle. Modernization imposed without inclusive political participation can generate instability rather than stability. Even today, the events of 1979 continue to shape Iran's domestic politics and foreign relations. Debates over